John chapter 10 verse 11. I am the good shepherd gives his life for the sheep. And verse 14, I am the good shepherd, I know my sheep as the Father knows me, and my sheep know me as I know the Father. So here's the claim. Jesus says, I am the good shepherd, I know my sheep, and then he claims he knows his Father. So what's the connection between those two knowings? And the word is really reciprocal. There is a reciprocal affection between shepherd and sheep, and a reciprocal affection between father and son, and the one parallels the other. The affection between shepherd and his flock can be compared in its intimacy, in its relational intimacy, with the affection between God the Father and God the Son. As the Father knows the Son, so does the shepherd know the sheep. As the Son knows the Father, so does the sheep know the shepherd. So what does that mean? And how does Jesus substantiate his claim? Now, right the way through the Gospel of John, Jesus uses a rich variety of images. He calls himself a gate, a king, a vine, a shepherd, a thief in the night. All kinds of images, and each image suggests an association in your mind, picks up another aspect of the truth that is on John the author's heart. Is how can I explain the mystery of who Jesus exactly is? So shepherd might not mean very much to you. We moved from West London to West Island, and I can tell you from personal experience that the shepherds no longer inhabit Shepherd's Bush. But here in the west of Ireland, they're all around us. It's big business. So if I took you to the sheep fair at Roscommon, one of these towns here, each farmer will tell you the number and the stock value and of their sheep, and that they'll know the market that those sheep were bought from and the remunerating price at which they can be sold or disposed of. Interesting phrase, isn't it? And the farmer has in front of him so much stock convertible into so much cash. That's the point of being a farmer. Did you know that? But in ancient Palestine, it was different. And there was a union of attachment and tenderness between shepherd and sheep. And the shepherd was there to prevent danger to the sheep in a way that modern farmers would not be aware of at all. And Jesus tells the story, the parable of the lost sheep, and you have the picture of the farmer putting his stock into a fold and going out to get the lost one, and a personal involvement, you might say, in keeping the sheep shipshape. And David tells a story in the Old Testament about how, in defense of his father's flock, he slew a lion and a bear. And Jacob tells Laban, do you remember? He says, I watched over the sheep in the drought and the desert, in the hardship of the day and the peril of the night. And it's making one point, and here's the point. You love those for whom you take a risk. Isn't that good? Isn't that lovely? You love those for whom you take a risk. And in the west, the flock is driven, but in the east, the flock was led. And therein is the difference. The sheep follow the shepherd in a kind of living symphony, a network of sympathy between the one knowing the other, trusting the other, and following the other. Not driven with a stick and the yapping even of a dog, but led by the figure of one they trust, who will lead them to good pasture. And you think immediately of Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd. Now, the people to whom Jesus was speaking knew that psalm very, very well. And they knew immediately the feelings and thoughts and associations and affection of which Christ was speaking. And when he said, I am a shepherd, they knew what he was talking about. And of course, remember, he was putting himself in the place of the Lord, who is the good shepherd, God, who is the good shepherd. So try to feel by imagining what a shepherd would feel towards these helpless things that are the companions of his daily life. You know, you drive down one of the streets here and you see these sheep. I have to tell you, they can be pretty stupid by themselves. You know, I just saw this one, he goes over, there's a big gate there, and the guy just sees a little hole in the wall and just goes over it, and then a whole lot of them follow over, and then there's the shepherd standing at the gate going, "Ah," like that. Sheep are pretty stupid. But what must he feel towards those things, those little helpless animals that are the daily companions of his toil and struggle, and for whom he will go into jeopardy? That's the Eastern farm. That's what Jesus was talking about. And you start to get a notion of the love which Jesus means to represent by this story. That tenderness with which Jesus leans over. It's like you might express towards a little 2-year-old standing by himself by the side of a road. And you think, "Oh my goodness, are you all right?" And you start to feel what Jesus feels towards us, except that he knows our names. He knows all about us. He hasn't bought us in a market, but he has given himself for us. He says the good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. He wasn't talking primarily about the cross, though that is huge in his meaning. He's talking about what a shepherd does. He lays down his life. He puts himself at risk for his sheep, because he puts this one thing in front of it. He says, "I am the good shepherd." And you start to conceive of what it might be like if there was a bad shepherd. And indeed, this is the part of the story. He distinguishes himself from those who came before him, people who are robbers, who have one particular aspect of looking at the sheep, how much money they can make out of it, and hirelings, paid workers. And they are ones who will work well up to a point, but have no inner tenderness towards, it's just a job. It's just a job. I remember working on a production line making cheese, and my job was to press 2 buttons and to watch the cheese cut into sections. And one day, I have to confess to you, I was working with less than my normal 100% enthusiasm and energy, and the manager said, "Don't you care? Don't you care about the production of the dairy?" And I was forced to confess that I didn't care very much. Shocking but true, isn't it? I had no inner feeling of deep reciprocal affection between me and the cheese. But Jesus loves us, and this story starts to lead us into what it means to be sheep loved and known by a good shepherd. We must come back and look into this more deeply. God bless you today.